Hi, everybody. How's it going? Let me see here the first couple comments to make sure I'm here. Okay, great. Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode. And hi, Vivienne. How are you?
Hi, I'm good.
Thanks
Thanks
so
for
much for
having
being a
me.
part of this. All right, yeah, yeah. People can start shooting her questions for her anytime. Yeah. Today we're talking about we've had a lot of topics on the show so far, but today it's about kind of looking past the Hollywood and studio system and making your own stuff on your own in the YouTube age.
Yeah.
Viv has a lot of know-how about that as the creator of Helluva Boss and Hazbin Hotel. Please, the floor is yours. Let us know about yourself, how you got started, how you got into making cartoons.
Oh boy. I have been making cartoons. oof. I've been, I knew I wanted to go into animation since age 5. So, I've
Mhm.
had a lot of time to really understand this art form and this path. And I've been telling stories since the beginning. When I was in college, I had a webcomic, and that was kind of my first foray into public storytelling. And it ended, I ended up losing steam, as many people who do comics. They're a lot harder than they look. They take a lot of energy, and
Mhm.
it was the first time I'd leapt into a project like that. So definitely made a lot of my mistakes there. But I went to school for animation. So after I graduated college, I was very like, you know what, this is what I want to do. I've just finished school and I want to dive into this. And so it kind of stole my focus away. And I did a fan animation to a song I really loved by Kesha. And that was kind of my first taste of YouTube, like, oh, this is fun.
Mhm.
I'd never had something kind of take off in that way. I had done my thesis film, which was a short, but it didn't have any like lyrics or sing or voices in it. So I was very like just wanting to do more animated musical
Mhm.
projects. And so from Die Young, the fan animation I did, I progressed to like developing more and more of these musical films. And I did a few more fan animated song things and just kind of stretched my animation legs on my own. But through creating those, I found that, obviously when you're working with someone else's material, especially the way YouTube is set up, the all the residuals go to the artist who wrote the song, which obviously is
Yeah.
beyond, I was beyond happy with. But at a certain point I was like, I can't keep doing this. I have
Mhm.
to make something original. And so my ambitions have always been pretty high. And so I set out to make, all I knew was I wanted to make a musical, an original musical. And at that point, I didn't have very many of the contacts that I do now. So it was very much me against, you know, whatever adverse, just like the blank void of just what am I going to do. And I ended up landing on doing Hazbin because I had the characters for so long and I knew them so well, and I really felt like they would be a fun show. Like I felt like this
Mhm.
would be a fun show. And originally it wasn't really meant to be a pilot per se. It was originally just meant to be a short.
Mhm.
Um, but as it progressed, I was in the weeds with that world for so long, and I really thought about what I wanted to do with this, and it became a first episode. Like it's a pilot by every means of the word, but the way I was writing it and the way I was treating it was a first episode of an
Right.
animated show, which is I think why it plays the way it does. It feels like the start of an
Mhm.
ongoing series. So um yeah, that's kind of how I got it. As creating has been, it built and built and built to the place of being where it is now. Like originally there weren't as many songs in it. It wasn't as long. So much changed throughout the creation of it, and developed. So it was definitely a build and a climb to get
Mhm.
to that.
What year was the Kesha music video?
That was the year I graduated. So it was 2014, I want to say.
I think that
I
was
got
the
that one
first
out.
thing I ever saw from you too,
Yeah.
and I was just blown away. And I was like, oh my god, like what animation? That's crazy, crazy good.
Thank
Um,
you.
uh, when, uh, but did you mention how long have you had the idea for Hazbin? Does that predate school or?
It predates kind of it's I've had some of the characters as far back as high school. Like Alistair is
Mhm.
the big one. I've had him since high school, maybe even middle school. Like
Wow.
time has lost all meaning. But he's been around for a while. He was my edgy
Mhm.
in art character that has made his way to the big time, which is kind of crazy. But the yeah, it's been a it's so most of the characters came in college. Most of them were like
Mhm.
during my webcomic days, and I was kind of developing the webcomic. Originally these characters were in the webcomic because the webcomic had everything in it, and I yanked them out because I was like, this is way too random in
Mhm.
this comic. This has nothing to do with the comic, and this would already be a deviation from the story within the comic. So why don't I just take them out? And once I took them out and had them in their own world that I could develop incredibly separate from, the world I'd already been living in, it was like a playground again. It was
Right.
like, wow, I can really, and now Hasbin's universe is like my new playground
Yeah.
because I'm working in it for so much.
So you seem to decide pretty early on that this would be that you would like try pitching it, but this no matter what you would move forward and make it on your own.
Yeah, it has
Correct.
has been was not even like I knew I wanted to pitch it eventually, but I was very set on it being out
Just
first.
making it. Yeah.
I remember I have a wonderful manager, but like I remember even early on he was like, "Oh, this is already like we could already go ahead and take this out." And I was like, "I
Yeah.
want to finish it." And I'm really glad I did because I feel like finishing it was able to show itself
Hmm.
in a way that if we had taken it out before it was done,
Yeah. And
it wouldn't have had that presence at all.
yeah, you went
Um,
ahead and you and the crew made it, and you made a finished full thing. How is it? How long is it? 30 minutes?
30
A little
minutes.
over?
Yeah, a
Yeah.
little over, but 30 minutes.
Um, I'll brag a little that I was at the Has Been screening that before the pandemic,
Best night
and
of
it
my
was
life.
just like the pride that you could just feel how proud everyone was of all the hard work that everyone did.
That day
And
was better than the actual launch. That
yeah,
was the
yeah,
best day of my life. I love that. Just
super fun.
being in a room with a bunch of people who help make something independently
Hmm.
and who are all proud of their work, and it's the first time anyone's seeing it as one big, you know, finish short.
Yeah.
That was unbelievable.
And a lot of people from out of town and across the
Yeah,
world all came in.
people came from all over because the magic about Has Been is that it was created from all walks of the industry, and I say that as like, it was created independent of the industry. There was no studio behind it, but it was created by people who had industry experience. You
Hmm.
you helped on it, I think. um People who work at Warner, people who work at
Yeah,
Disney, people
yeah,
all over touched it. But then there was also people who had never been on a project ever in their life
yeah.
before, and it was
A nice mix of people.
huge mix of people, and that's exciting to me. I thought that
Yeah.
was really cool about it.
Yeah, we can jump right in. I see tons of people writing questions already, so we can jump right in. From Christy, first question here. How do you combat writer's block when you get it?
Oh boy. I'm getting it more now because I'm writing a lot more scripts
Yeah.
now than I did before. And I don't know. Some nights the whole script falls out of me. Like I'll just sit there and the whole thing, I'll just
Hmm.
write it in one day. And
Hmm.
I'm like, that feels good. That feels so good. Some days you just you sit there and you look at the page and you're like, I can't. For me, I've learned to not fight it. If it's
Yeah.
not going to come, it's not going to come. And I think you just need to step back at that point. And
Hmm.
usually what helps me is revisiting whatever is inspiring the specific script you know, whether that be a real event in your life or a real person, or kind of revisiting those memories. Sometimes music from, if it's a time period, music helps me. Sometimes watching something that's in the genre,
Yeah.
whatever thing like can kind of get you some inspiration so that your head is in that world or in that place. But if you can't write it, don't force yourself, because you're not going to write anything good.
Right. Right.
So.
Do you primarily write alone? Do you have a writer's room? Like, how do you usually tackle writing?
The best example I can give is for Helluva Boss, because of the way we wrote Hazbin isn't really how I write anymore.
Okay.
But which was a group of people in one call, and we would hash out ideas and then go down to the draft, and the draft would pass along. It was a very untraditional, I feel, because, you know, it was an indie production. None of us had really written a screenplay before in that way. So it was very much us all kind of learning and chipping at it and going, what if this, what if that? With Helluva Boss, I write it with Brandon Rogers, and the process is a little different, because we will meet and go over at each episode, and he will throw out ideas for the structure, and then I will outline it based on his feedback, based on my ideas, based on what we come up with in the call. And then either he will draft or I will draft. And then usually, then one of us punches up. So like if I draft, he will punch up the dialogue, make it a little bit funnier if it's lacking of that kind of flavor he brings to the project. And then with me, if he drafts it, it's kind of the other way around, where I'm kind of the character person. You know, I'm the creator of these characters, and I'm the world lore expert. So if something is too like out of the world, I will take it back, or if something's like a little too out of character, I will take it back. But
Sure.
That's kind of our process. So it's so far it's just been the two of us, and it's you know, so that, you know, it's a cool process, because it ends up just being our voices so far on the episodes that we've been doing.
Cool. It sounds like you do it pretty much the same as me. Do you kind of write out the script and just make it so all the story's working, and then you kind of go back in and punch up the gags and the jokes and the comedy?
Yeah, I usually try to make sure all of the stuff is condensed now versus how we wrote these first episodes on the season, because we're writing some more episodes on the season. We also, the way I type my script out, I start in Google Drafts, like Google Docs, and because Final Draft isn't really that comfortable to write a first draft in for me.
Sure.
And so I'll start there, and obviously the spacing is not the same as what it'll be in Final Draft when you pull it over. So, you know, my spacing was just character ... says line, character or character dash line, and that does not give it the spacing that I think a normal script does, and it condenses it more. So all the episodes are way longer than I anticipated.
Oh,
so
once it's formatted in a script?
Yes,
script format,
And then, you know, once everything's recorded out and the dialogue is all timed to the animatic, I'm like, this is like so much longer than I expected it to be. So now I'm typing it with the character's name, like in Final Draft, character's name, dialogue underneath. Space, character's name. There's a lot more spacing, and I feel like now I'm going to get a better, it'll be shorter no matter what, because it's going to be shorter by at least a line every time. But, you know, that's what I've learned. So I do recommend, if you're under a time crunch, to type it either in Final Draft or to have that spacing, because otherwise, you know, if you do it character dash line, it's not gonna, it's gonna fit on a page easier, and it's gonna look, oh look, this is only a page. But then when you try, you know, because, you know, typically I think the way animated scripts work is like, what, it's a page and a half is a minute.
For live action, a page is a minute. For animation just by nature, it just moves faster.
Yeah.
So a page and a half is about a minute. Yeah.
Yeah, that's usually, yeah, but I feel like that's with the spaced out. That's with
Right.
all the,
Yeah.
yeah.
So if it's
So,
like a 15-page script, it'll probably end up being around 10 minutes.
yeah.
Yeah. For anyone, I don't think we actually hit on this in our writing episode with Emily and Madison, everybody, but Final Draft is what most people use for writing.
It's handy.
Also, I never know how to pronounce it. Celtx or Celtix. It's
Celtics.
CELTX.com. It's a free, another
Oh, that
free
one's free. Okay. Yeah,
screenwriting
because
program.
the
Yeah.
benefit to Final Draft, because I went through a few of them, because I'm super new to script writing, so I went through a few of them because the only thing I needed it for was shot numbering automatically, like going through and shot numbering, because if you can, or not shot numbering,
Line numbering.
line numbering,
Yeah.
because when you go to the voice actors, it's very handy to have all of the lines numbered, because then you can go, okay, line 58.
Yeah.
All right, do
And then everybody will know
80.
right where to jump to.
Exactly. It's easier on the actors. So I feel like that's the benefit of Final Draft if you're a writer, if we're doing animation specifically. For live action, it doesn't matter. You don't need that. But for animation specifically, Final Draft is handy in that.
I'm
regard.
guilty of forgetting to line my numbers sometimes.
Yeah. It's always the last part. I'm always like, oh, snap that, And
Yeah. Back to the question number 2 here. Sorry if I'm not pronouncing it right. Rosum or Rosum. Do you have to be very good at telling jokes when creating a dialogue for characters? I guess if you're making a comedy, probably, yeah. Have you written primarily comedy? Or have you written, any,
that's the fun.
mostly comedy?
Yeah, so this is the fun challenge to writing adult comedy, is that I am not a comedian. So I have been stuck with because Brandon is a comedian through and through, one of the funniest people I know. His schedule is very busy, so he cannot focus on the scripts as much as me. So a lot of the jokes you end up seeing are mine. And it's weird because some of them I think are good and some of them I'm like, no, but then they'll get a laugh and I'm like, okay, I guess they weren't as bad as I thought. Or what I try to do is I try to read my script out loud to people. And if they laugh, that's a good judge. There's also what the actors are going to do. The actors can make a joke funnier. They can ad-lib a joke. So if you're not the funniest person or you don't feel like you're the funniest, because I feel like humor is so subjective that you can feel like you're super unfunny, but it might be funnier than you don't know until you put it in front of an audience. So I wouldn't get discouraged if you don't think you're very funny, but you want to try something funny. But I also do feel like a writer should play to you'll always know what your strengths are. For me, my strengths are drama and romance and all like the emotional stuff. Like I really like emotion personally when it comes to writing. I feel like I can write that way easier than I can write comedy. And due to that, I think there's a lot more drama in the shows that I'm doing right now than there probably would have been if it was primarily Brandon writing. So I think that's the fun thing that you can bring, like whatever thing you feel like is the thing you bring to a project, that's probably what will make it different. So don't feel like you need to make a comedy if you don't feel particularly comfortable writing comedy, because yes, it is important to write comedy, but you never know if you're funnier than
Yeah, and then like Viv said, if you do, try sharing it with some friends and see if they laugh, or what else did you mention? Share with friends and
the actors,
family.
And
that's it. That was what I was trying to remember.
The actors might.
A lot of the time, the actors could ad lib too.
Yeah, you can give them more agency on the script. You can be like, this joke isn't really that good. What do you want to do with it? And they can, sometimes it's as simple as them doing the read in a really weird way, or there's so many things the actors can do.
The actors can just say the exact words that you wrote, but just say it a funny way.
There's a few parts in the Helluva Boss episodes we're doing right now that were like full on just accidents in the recording booth that I thought were hysterical. And I just kind of put them in because
Just leaving in accidents.
yeah,
That's great.
yeah, because they added.
um, uh, from Alexander, when it comes to developing shows based off of properties that already exist, how do you go about that? I don't know if Viv is developing anything
I
based off of stuff.
mean,
But
I've been I obviously cannot speak to them at all due to NDA, but I have been hired to do design work for rebooty kind of stuff. I mean, my attitude with any of thing when you're working with material that isn't like originally yours, I would just say have a love for that original thing. I think people can always tell when a reboot or when a project is made by people who don't know the original. So I think that's like just my advice in general. I think if you're rebooting any kind of property, you're clearly going for a certain audience, and you should be right by that audience. You should find a designer or a director or a showrunner who is familiar with that property so that they can make it their own, but also keep it in line with something that's been in the past. That's my personal opinion. I'm not going to sit here and speak for studios. Don't feel like doing that, but I that's my attitude with it. I also do, though, if you are developing something off of pre-existing IP, make sure that you're doing that because of a job. I don't know if just doing it because would get you into trouble. I don't know.
I guess there's always fan
if you're doing something
cartoons
for fun, go for it. But if you're planning to pitch an IP, it's typically better to at least work for the studio first. If they're looking for a legacy show, then they'll be like,
when I was at Disney TVA, I wanted to pitch a Roger Rabbit, a new Roger show.
That would be dope.
That would be fun.
Be so dope.
And they were like, "Oh, Roger Rabbit's really complicated right now." They're like, maybe.
I heard that in a meeting. Yeah. I heard that in a meeting because I had a meeting where I was actually asked if you wanted to reboot, like if we had a legacy show that you wanted to are there any old cartoons that you'd want to do? And Roger Rabbit was on the list.
Yeah.
I was like, oh heck yeah, I'd do that. And and I got a similar I feel like it's complicated just in general because the movie is adult kind of. So
I think it's complicated with the author of the original book. They said there's all kinds of things. There's all kinds of reasons why you don't see Roger Rabbit around much right now, basically. But Annie, that's a whole nother topic. From Sydney, has there ever been a time working on something where you were in a time crunch, and how do you deal with that?
I mean, yes. A lot of freelance jobs I've had have been time crunches because that's usually where there's like a set deadline and a studio waiting on something to get done. And for me, the benefit to doing the independent productions is that the schedule is really on us. I can stretch the schedule as wide as we need it. For some things, like for Hazbin, I did set a deadline because we had, it was almost like I set the deadline 5 or 6 months out, so I was like 5 or 6 months to get this done. And we have it in a place that I'm very confident we could do it. And we did it. And there was a time crunch for Hazbin, but I will not get into that. But, there was a lot of factors that led to us working on that till the buzzer.
Yeah.
But they were not things that were entirely in my control. So it was kind of like it was a lot. There were some factors. For Helluva Boss and for some of our other shorts, I am setting deadlines, but they're lax because, so there's so many factors. And at the end of the day, I don't need to bite somebody's head off to finish it on a certain day if we literally are not answering to anybody. But, maybe I that's why I usually don't release a release date until like it's pretty much in the bag. Gotcha. Because I want to make sure that that's not a lie, because the worst case scenario is I set a deadline and I
you
go,
miss it.
all right, and then something goes wrong,
Yeah.
and instead of biting someone's head off to get it done, I'd rather go, okay, it's fine, we'll take a little bit more time, but then it's a lie to the audience, you know what I mean? So then we have to go, oh, never mind, it's not coming out this day, it's coming out that day. And I'd rather not do that. So usually when we finally announce our thing, it's because the project is done and we're just going, okay, this is when we're going to put it out. And I usually try to do it like a week in advance.
That's a much smarter way.
Yeah.
Cool. From Will, where would you recommend someone start when making their own cartoon? It's a nice starter question.
Yeah. I would start, nothing can start without a script. I think the script is the biggest part, because it is the foundation. You know, without a script, you can't record the voices. Without a script, you can't give the board artists anything to do. With the script, you have a lot of power, because once the script is done and locked, you know, I wouldn't even just shoot one out. I know a lot of productions have a nightmare schedule because of rewrites. I would recommend, because of the success I found, don't do rewrites. Do your rewrites up front. If you do rewrites, have them be very minor and have them be more in the recording booth. Like I've had more, you know, I've had rewrites technically, but they've always been in the recording booth. I'll catch, because the actor will be saying the line out loud and I'll go, oh, that word was used twice. That sounds a little unnatural. Can you change that line?
Yeah.
Like literally just in the recording booth is kind of where that happens. And then worst case scenario, if there are, you know, if the board artist throws in a new gag or something like that, you know, then it's like a pickup. But I would recommend, just based off my experience with like having to lock an animatic and lock a thing, pipeline goes so much easier if you're not changing things last minute and having to redo the animatic and redo the timeline and bring the actors back. I would recommend absolutely just doing a bazillion drafts of your script until you feel really confident about it, and then going in and going, this is locked and you can't change it. Because the more changes you make, the more trouble it causes. So my biggest advice, definitely start with that script and make sure you're comfortable with it and it's like locked, because then you can hand it to the artist. The artists are doing that script and that dialogue and that everything, and then you go to the actors and you're recording that dialogue and that script, and you know, they'll all match. They'll all, you know, when you put it together, it'll all match. So you won't have to be running back and forth trying to figure out a new direction. You know, it's just that's my advice.
And starting off with a script, you're getting your characters started on the world, the setting, the idea that you're coming up with. So that's a really smart place to start. From Joe, what was your journey like from developing comics to making more ambitious TV-length, TV quality videos?
I mean, I kind of touched on that in the beginning, but I'll kind of rewrap it. The comics and animation are such a vastly different medium, and I feel like even when I did my comics, I did not go to school for comics. You know, I've always wanted to tell stories and I've always had characters, but there is an art of comics, telling more information per panel, you know, making the comic breaking the rules of like, you know, how you can tell your story, how you can express your panels. There's a really cool art form to comics, and I feel like I still have not, comics are not my art form, so I can't say that I have a lot of confidence in my comic ability past just, you know, being able to make expressive faces and write. But so the jump was not that hard, because I feel like my comics already kind of read as animation. My timing and my pacing for my comics was very like animated and board driven kind of, which is why I feel like, you know, information that I could have told in one page, I feel like I took like 5 pages to do, because it was so like incremental. So jumping into like boards and animation was easier because I already kind of thought in that direction. But the ease into like the level of, you know, scope of Hazbin from comics was mostly just from my comic. I went to a thesis film, which was a pretty solid short. I think my thesis was about 6 minutes. So I went to making a 6-minute short film for school. And then I went to making like these 3-minute fan animations for fun. And then it went from that to, okay, I want to combine my writing and my visuals with, you know, something new. And then it just became, you know, a matter of, I had some amazing friends have faith in my project. Here's a fun piece of advice that I have for all you young artists who want to make. I would not have made Hazbin if not for the fact that I had friends who took my idea seriously, and instead of laughing at it and instead of calling it dumb or not really, or being that whole, you know, oh, that's cute anyway, my thing, you know, instead of doing that, I had people who went, this is a cool idea. We want to work with you and we believe in this and we want to help you make it. And that was all I needed, because up until that point, sad anecdote, I never had people like that in my life, or at least if I did, they were not people who, you know, directly were helping me with my original projects. It was more so talking about each other's projects and having fun with that. But I had never had a group of people like the writer, you know, like my good friends who helped me write Hazbin, who really didn't want to gain anything, and they just wanted to make this thing that was mine better, and they had faith in it, and that faith is what propelled me to want to make it bigger, to want to make it, you know, more outside of me. So I recommend, if you do work with anybody on anything, find those people, because there will be the people who want to gain, and I would, you know, you definitely just need to not be in those places.
Great.
And I speak from experience there.
Supportive people go a long way.
Goes a long way, especially with an indie. I think that's specialized in the indie world, because I'm sure this is the same for studio world, but that's always more like the money is coming from a place and they're sitting it in front of you and going, do it. And then it's up to you to really make that, you know, blossom. But with indie projects, that is all it is. You know, you need to have that support, and that, and everyone knows that they're working for a little less. And it's, you know, it's there's no doubt about it that it needs to be more fueled from that place of support and passion. So, you know.
This question from Aaron, I'm really interested in too. How did you go upon building your brand, the Vivzy Pop brand, from logo, name, color palette to overall theme and design?
Oh man.
So I guess visually and the idea, your brand.
Well, the funny part is that I don't pay attention to my brand. It's an accidental brand. And I'm not even kidding there. I don't have any like specific branding. I'm kind of expanding on, because people have asked me to have just like Spindle Horse shirts or Vivzy Pop shirts, which I've, you know, I'd rather people have something for a project they like than just my name on you know, it's kind of odd to me, but not odd in desire, because I get it. There's a lot of content creators who have like a brand and that's their thing. And for me, I think my brand is more so just the weird things I create. So like I've been playing around with doing like little pins or like charms of like things I like, because I feel like that's my brand. My brand has become my weird style mixed with all the things I like in a blender. So that's kind of like, you know, because like even like the colors of my brand, or my favorite color combination is like Spanish orange, yellow, and hot pink. So that's why that's everywhere. And then there's like, you know, all of the, like, I love my cats. So I'm thinking about doing little, like, you know, like I'll draw my cats in the corner of things, or like I've fallen in love with avocado. So now I'll draw avocados on things, and I love skulls and like animal skulls. So I'll put skulls everywhere. I don't know. Like to me, it's literally just things I like, with colors I like. And that's just kind of become my brand, but I don't specifically think about it. And then I guess to an extent, hell has kind of become my brand, because I have 2 shows about hell, and I keep making these monstery things, but I don't
demons.
So,
creatures. Yeah.
it's not really something I can say is my brand per se, as I'm known for it. So now,
In the
like, when
chat,
people,
hell is my favorite thing.
hell is, it's fun. I love fictionalized hell. I always have like loved fictionalized versions of hell. But the fun part about Hazbin for me is that it's the kind of hell universe I've always wanted to see, because there's so many, but so many of them are the classic kind of feel and look of hell, like the idea of hell. Hell doesn't exist. I've had, my favorite was this one guy that was like, that's not how hell is. And I'm like,
man.
have you been there? Like, okay.
That's not
but
how hell works. What? Who? Okay.
But you know what I
How would
mean?
you
Like,
know?
exactly. No, I'm sitting here like, have there been studies about how hell, there's been books, and I know a lot of the books of like the iterations of hell. Like, I try to incorporate as much as I can for the nerds who would notice this kind of hell theology mini stuff, but you play with it,
Yeah, you have like a modern hell. It's like a city. It's like
Yeah.
a skyscraper city, buildings. It's kind of like a cosmopolitan hell.
Yeah. The way I see it is, it's like, where does most of the crime and the crazy stuff and the sleazy stuff and clubs and bars and all that, where
Vending
does that happen?
machines
It's
with
usually
drugs.
like Vegas or New York or like all
mm-hmm.
these places. So my hell universe is like, what if all the people who just, that is their world, that is their reality, were just dumped in one place? They'd probably make a city. They make a city, but it's nothing but the stuff that they like. There's no little yoga shop or like a little like a little bakery, because like I don't know, it wouldn't be a high priority for these people.
Yeah.
So that's kind of how the hell turned into for me. And like, for me, I was very inspired by the Batman animated series backgrounds where they have that bright red sky. So trying to do that but still make it feel like it's not a normal city is kind of a challenge. So we're still figuring out how the hell like looks on a visual standpoint. I really like how we did it in Addict. We added a lot more greens and purples in there to kind of like make it pop from the red background a lot more. And I really liked I liked that direction.
Yeah. That's the brand.
Yeah. The brand.
Yeah. When I think of you, I was going to say for colors, red, pink, black, and white. That's kind of, those are the colors I associate with you.
My other favorite is the kind of Christmassy, like the white and red, but with like black in there to kind of like give it some sharpness. So Helluva Boss was because I wanted the shows, even though like spiritually they're in like the same universe, I wanted them obviously to be completely separate entities in terms of like content and tone and everything. And so one of my ideas was to give it more of that monochromatic white, red, and black kind of color scheme of like spot color, of like really limited. So the characters are bright red and their clothes are really dark. Like, they're not quite full black, because you're not supposed to use like full black stuff in animation as well. Like when you're on the characters, it's just too stark, but it's very close to that. And then like Blitz especially has like the white patch on him, and they've got like the white hair. So it was always my desire to kind of keep those three colors on the character design.
Cool.
Like a splash of yellow in there. Their eyes.
These next two questions I'm going to ask together because they kind of complement each other. From Matthew, hey Viv, I'm creating a series and have pitched to a few studios, but I am now looking into making it independently. Would you recommend Kickstarter for the first episode or a different method? And then afterwards, Will asks, how did you fund Hazbin Hotel? So maybe like both about like how would funding
for indie stuff.
What do you recommend?
The big thing, because I feel like the biggest hurdle that indie stuff has is just money. That is, I mean, at the end of the day, the reason that studio shows get made is because there's a lot of money behind them, and indie shows, do not have that luxury. My journey with Hazbin was literally every dollar to my name at the time, and I had a savings, and I had not quite an inheritance, but kind of like a bit of money that I got from a family member that was meant to, just be my little initial fund if I was going to move out. So what I did was I ended up staying at home, where I lived with my grandparents. So I didn't have to pay a substantial amount for rent. And so I was able to retain all the money I made. And I was working on a lot of freelance, which wasn't paying great, but every bit of freelance money was going towards myself and for this budget. And I was also already on Patreon for just creating art. And it wasn't bringing a whole lot in, but it was bringing enough to squirrel away every single month. And so I originally just started with my savings, and I thought they would cover, I was like, okay, this is going to cover the boards. So got to the boarding stage, had a little bit extra funds to start on animation. And I was like, okay, so I would recommend personally, just because it's been my lifesaver, is Patreon, because it's ongoing. So it can filter in, even if you're not making a lot, it can filter in, and you can use this right now. And then by the time you're done that, because everything in animation takes time, by the time you're done that, you've gotten the next payment for this bit. And you just try and keep it going like that. Because I had my savings initially that did this big push, and then slowly filtered in. And then I was also working freelance still the whole way. I've only gotten to the place now where I can work full time and not do any freelance, but I still do here and there because it's kind of my spending money now. But so I would recommend Patreon, just because Kickstarter, I have not run one, so I cannot speak to Kickstarter yet. I am not against it by any means necessary. In fact, I feel like it's in my future to do a Kickstarter, but my thing is the Kickstarter for me would be for something massive, like a feature or a season, because the way we've been doing now, we're actually amazingly able to make multiple episodes without asking for or without throwing a big Kickstarter. But the way I always say it is that my current show, like Helluva Boss and Hazbin, or anything we're making, is entirely funded by the audience, because we created such a solid thing that now, we can sell merch and we can continue with Patreon. But people see now what we did, and they go, we want more of that. So if you're making more of that, we want it. And that is what allows us to make more of that, And so I always say it to the team. I say it to anyone I meet with. Helluva Boss, which was what we're doing now, because Hazbin's being figured out in like the world of animation. But Helluva Boss is what we're in production of. And I'm like, this has to be good. This is not something that we're just like, oh, we want to make more, so we'll make more. I'm like, no, people liked Hazbin, people liked this pilot, and now we have a duty to make sure that we're making something that the audience wants, but we're also having fun with. And so, I think funding really, like, to go do an ongoing series, you just need to make a good product. And I think with Kickstarter, it can be easy to be discouraged, because without having that first episode like already done, you're kind of asking people to take a chance on something cool, and you have to make a big flashy presentation, and it has to be very, so I would, anyone who's kind of figuring on Indiegogo or Kickstarter, you just need to make sure that your job now is to pitch this to the audience. Hey, this is why you need to donate to get this made. And so it's all about presentation on that end. That's why I personally feel more comfortable making something first, so that I can put that on the table and go, did you like that? Because we'll make more of that.
Exactly. Yeah.
So I would recommend trying to make the first one yourself, or making a proof of concept yourself, even if that's just like a minute of the film finished.
Yeah.
And then go to Kickstarter and go, do you want to see the rest? Because just based on my experience, that's what I would want. I don't always like just a trailer for, oh, this is what it could be, because you never know. And I feel like that's the risk. So you just need to make sure you can deliver, is my only advice for Kickstarter.
That's good advice. Let's see. And I like that you mentioned taking things at a time and just focusing on, here's the funds for the storyboards. Let's not worry
Yeah.
about anything past that. Let's just get the storyboards done.
That's
And
how
then,
that's my other definite advice, is that focus on the small term first and what
Yeah.
you can accomplish first. Don't think of the big picture. Don't think about, oh my God, I need the budget for the entire thing yet.
yeah, just focus
Think
on one
about
thing
it.
at a time.
Yeah, because when you have the board, you can show the board to people. When you have the animation, you can show the animation to people. I feel like the more you have done and to show, the more, people will understand that's happening.
Cool. This question is from Aspen Arts. Hello, Vivs. When creating your cartoon series, do you have the entire plot thought up and written down, or do you have ideas and see where it goes from there? Or do you you have the whole thing written out, or do you write as you go along?
It depends on the project, but for me, a lot happens as we go along, because the more time you're spending with characters, sorry, my kitten,
Hey.
more time you're spending with, wanting to walk on like every keyboard I own. But like the more time you're spending with like the world and the characters, the more you really want to like, the more you learn things about them that you wouldn't even have known before. So for Hazbin especially, like we were working on the pilot for 2 years. And so in that 2 years, I lived with the story, I lived with the characters, and I was able to, by the end, know exactly where it goes, know what stories I want to tell, know what each character's arc is. And so through that, we were able to back end put in little hints to the bigger picture in the pilot. If I had known up front, the pilot probably would have had more of that, but we were able to do it because so much of it developed as it went, to the point where now I literally know where it ends. I know where it ends. I know what each character's arc is. I know what twists and turns happen. I know all of that. And that was because I spent the 2 years in production living in that world and wanting to know, because I knew I had to know. It's such a big story, and it's such a big, like, even just what it represents, like redemption and growth. There needs to be a very defined arc for each character, and it's complicated but fun. Like that's my favorite part of a project, really, is figuring out where it goes. And what's nice with Helluva Boss, it's kind of similar, but Helluva Boss is much more unraveling as it goes, because it's all about the characters' interpersonal relationships. Like the big difference between Helluva Boss and Hazbin is that Hazbin is about the growth of the characters, but it's for a narrative reason. And there's a very big world, and the stakes are very, very big, and it's very grandiose, and it has a lot of complicated topics that are not easy to answer, and it has more conversation. Whereas Helluva Boss doesn't have this kind of moral obligation, because the characters are born in hell, and so they don't have this obligation to be better people in the eyes of the audience, but they have an obligation to be better people in the eyes of each other. And it's a very different setup, and it's a very different so the story is more unraveling the more time I spend with it, and it's kind of unraveling as we go. So the characters are developing with each new script, instead of me knowing what their arc has to be and all that. It's more, as I wrote the script and as I made the show, I realized what each arc had to be. I was like, the main character Blitz especially, like I'm like, I knew he was a goofy, and I knew he had, up in the pilot, I knew he had some of these issues, but they were more for fun. And then as we wrote the scripts, I was like, oh no, that would probably have a consequence. That would also probably have a consequence. And maybe this is what his issue is that these are his heavy flaws, and these are his true fears and anxieties, and why. And then I was like, okay, well, let's play into that. Let's see how that goes. So each show kind of had a different development, I guess, way, but it's fun to, I think my roundabout answer is, I think the more you know, the better. but there's nothing wrong with figuring it out as you go on the journey with the character. It depends on what your show is setting out to do. If the show is setting out to tell a very, very monumental, like conversational, complicated story, knowing more about it up front is probably a good idea. But if your show is more about the characters and more about like the way the characters are interacting with their world or each other, I would say there's nothing wrong with exploring it as you go, because that's more human and that's more natural. So yeah,
I'd say have a lot of your story and characters figured out, but not so tight to where you can't add anything in later on down the line. This next question is from Will. How do you fight feelings of failure or doubt?
I mean, all the time. I guess the word a lot of people use is imposter syndrome. I don't necessarily feel imposter syndrome so much as I have this constant feel of wanting to do better the next time. Like I put something out and I can't watch it after that. Like when I put something out, I go, okay, I can't watch it. I put the blinders on.
Really?
Yeah, because I see all the mistakes, but they're not mistakes that other people made. Because what the weird thing about making these shows now is that so many people are involved that I'm adoring their work, but it's still like my writing or my whatever. And I get really self-conscious and I'm like, I'm not a good writer. I'm not this, I'm not that. I'm getting better at that because I think the more, especially with these episodes we're making now, the more I'm able to stretch my legs as a storyteller in the proper way. The pilots are always hard because a pilot has to do so much.
It's
always the roughest. It's always the most, it has the most problems. It has the most mistakes.
There's so much groundwork to lay down.
Yeah, and
it's usually
so much.
Yeah, it's usually really boring compared to future episodes.
Exactly. Yeah,
it's you got to lay down all these characters and who they are, and
it's so much. It has a lot of pressure and responsibility is on the pilot to lay that in. So I think that's why I have problems going back to watch like the pilots, because I'm like, this isn't anything like what it's gonna be, and I'm so like, oh, I can do better now. Like there's so much of that feeling when I go back to my old work. I'm very thankful that moving forward with like episodes, it feels very different. I'm like, okay, this is a story. I'm allowed now. The pilot is out of the way. The pilot did its job. So now I can live in the play box. I can really be in the sandbox and I can have fun. And that's kind of the magic of going into a series versus like just doing that pilot or that short. And so I feel like I'm feeling more comfortable now. Like I was able to watch the Attic music video on repeat with friends and with new people. Whereas with the pilot, I'm just sitting there going like, oh, I hope they like it. I hope they don't hate it. If someone doesn't laugh, it's like, there's so many of those moments too, because like comedy especially is so subjective that what was outrageous to me and my friends, someone else will watch it. Like I've watched like the Helluva Boss pilot with friends and family who have just nothing.
Really?
But then at the end they go, I liked it, but I don't know if that's true or not. I don't know if that's a lie or I don't know, because everyone perceives things differently as well. So, so I definitely feel the failure a lot. But it's not so much failure. It's this weird emotion of like, I can do better. I know I can do better. And now, but you wouldn't have been able to do better if you hadn't made the thing. So that's the way to look at it. You can do better now, but you couldn't do this better now back when you started. So you have to respect the journey a lot.
Also, just because cartoons just take so long. I mean, even though Hazbin didn't come out that long ago, what you're watching is something that's, at least 3 or 4 years old, especially the writing, because the writing's the first thing you did.
Yeah.
So, the writing is pretty old. It just doesn't come off that way because it's like, oh, Hazbin came out, 6 months ago or whatever.
Yes, that's a good point. Yeah, is that the writing is always the first step. And so the writing is always multiple years or months or whatever older than the actual
Yeah.
product that's coming out.
And you're 3 or 4 years better of a writer by now.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah, I hear you. um, from Sullivan, this we kind of might have covered this. For someone who's planning on creating a cartoon series independently, do you have any tips on getting started, or just in general? I think we've kind of
We've kind of covered that.
Okay, cool.
I think.
From Will, differences between working for yourself versus a studio. I mean, there's a ton.
Yeah.
A lot of it's a lot of similarities, but did you want to take that, or?
Sure. My biggest thing is that you can write whatever the heck you want.
Yeah.
I was gonna say
you're the boss.
A naughty word. No, you can make whatever joke, you can make whatever character. The freedom I've found, which, you know, the studio world is opening up to it, and it makes me very glad that they are. But I never have to worry about my character's identity. Like if I want to go, oh, this character is bi, I can do it and I can say it. Yeah. And there's no part of the studio going, well, middle America might not like that. I'm like, I don't fucking care.
I don't think China it.
I'm like, I don't care. I don't care who won't like it. I don't care, because we're making it for the audience, and the audience obviously likes it. And if they don't like it, they won't watch it. Or, I mean, you'd hope that they wouldn't watch it. But, you know, like it's very freeing to like be able to tell any story. Because there's also, for me, like I said, I specialize in drama and tragedy and stuff. And so there's no overhead going, this is a comedy. You can't make this, this sad. Because, you know, I can literally write any story I want. And I think I'm trying to take advantage of that. And that's why there probably will be more deep emotions in these episodes than you probably expect, because I can get into any story I want. I can get into stories, which in adult comedy, though, the good news about adult comedy is there is a lot more variety in the stories you can tell, but there's always still going to be somebody overhead who goes, no, this needs to be more joke heavy. This needs to be more this, that, this. Whereas with me, I call all the shots. So
I didn't think about that route, where you might want to go dramatic or sad, and the execs would be like, hey, remember, this is a comedy, make, you know, bump up the, I didn't, because usually it's, you know, be less wacky. We're trying to, you know, be
Well, that anyway. Too, that's another thing too, is that they might go, oh, this is too wacky, rein it in. Whereas when you're the creator, you can make it whatever you want. And I feel like, you know, in this current age, there's always also like kind of trends in animation. And so if you break the mold, or if you do something too like old school, people are going to be like, no, the modern, like the kids won't like that nowadays, or the whatever. You know, there's always a lot of, because there's a lot of pressure. There's a lot of money in studio animation. So they have a lot more of an objective to make something that they feel will succeed. Whereas with the internet, I really do feel like the internet and indie animation is the new shift, because we are able to prove what the internet wants. And the internet says it. Like the internet, like Hazbin would not have been found by A24 and had the success that it's having without it hitting a chord with an audience that might not have seen it if it was on TV, or if it had been anything other than what it is. And so I feel like that is the charm of my projects. And that's why I'm leaning into that so heavily with what we're making now, is that we can make any characters of any identity, and we can tell any story, and we can make any joke. And it's very freeing in that sense. So I love that about indie animation.
The biggest thing, I guess, is you don't have to compromise.
Yeah.
As opposed to studio projects, which you're kind of always compromising. And especially if the, like you mentioned, you know, if the studio we'll just say Disney has an entire country called China that they also want to market to, but you know, that country does not like homosexuality, and then it's like, well, can't do that.
There's always the line of like, okay, this market doesn't like this thing, you know, musicals, LGBT characters, or whatever it is. And like, you know, they have that obligation to think about that because they've got a lot more money in their pocket and they've got a lot more risking. But to me, that's the charm of the indie world, because we don't care. There's no reason to care. And there shouldn't be a reason to care in the studio world, but I get it makes sense.
Yeah.
The most way, but
yeah,
like,
I can see their point. Yeah.
I can see it. Like, I get it. And I just, for me, I'm like, I would rather just tell whatever story and bring my voice into something, because as an indie creator, you are putting your voice out there. You're putting what you want to make, whatever it's influenced by, and you are making that happen. And you didn't have to pitch it, unless you're doing like a Kickstarter, then you kind of have to pitch it to the audience, but it's more likely to find its audience with other people like you. And so, you know, for me, like, I love that about the internet, is that a bunch of people who like the same things I do, like me, went, yes, I like that, to Hazbin and to Helluva. And that makes me happy, because it also, like, it's niche. What I make is very niche. Adult comedy is niche. Big wacky characters with sharp teeth is niche. all of the things in it are niche, and the fact that it's resonated with so many people, I feel like just goes to show how much of that niche, like, market is there. And I think studios hopefully will start to reward these projects more and more, because it's the audience going, this is what we want to see, instead of them having to take a risk on something that they might not know. I just feel like it's a good testing ground.
And one last good thing about the internet also is that it's instant. You can see the support and the love instantly. You know, you can just see the numbers, the viewing, you know, and the comments and the likes just instantly going up right then and there. You don't have to wait a month to get the Nelson ratings back and find out how your TV show did.
Yes, exactly.
From Dylan, I'm currently attending an online course program pursuing a master's degree in traditional animation. I've heard talks about making animations that taught themselves. Asking for a friend, is it worth the effort to teach yourself how to animate instead of learning through college? I guess, what do you think, college versus teaching yourself?
I'm always in the very mixed bag on the whole college discussion. On one hand, this is the way I always put it, because I don't regret my college experience as far as the school. Yeah. My advice is always, this is what college will give you. It will give you the time. It will give you the place. It will give you the atmosphere. It'll give you access to the resources and to the teachers and to the you know, the students that will become your peers. It gives you access to those things on the direct. It is up to you to do something with that.
Yeah.
And it's very much up to the person, because to me, you can do all of that without a school. You know, it'll be harder to reach an industry studio professional teacher who will mentor you. It'll be harder to meet other people on the same level as you, also pursuing this thing. But it's possible. The internet allows you can take online courses with teachers. You can meet people who are aspiring in your world. But the time, though, because I don't think anybody is getting the time, you know, a full year of, you have no obligation other than your schoolwork. I don't think anyone who's not going to school has that just free time lying around. I feel like you'll probably working a job, or you'll be living on your own, or you'll be with family and having to deal with, but you'll still probably be doing something that takes up your 9 to 5 kind of time of school. So if you're okay with animation being the thing that you're learning on the side of your life and developing, you totally can. All school gives you is an entire year to be sitting, and that's what you're doing, and to be getting better and to be learning. That's all it gives you. And I don't know if that's worth the like bazillions of dollars in debt that you will end up for most art schools. So I feel like the big conversation around art schools is how expensive they are and how much in debt you are. and how not everybody is guaranteed a job out of school, which is also look at me. I'm a living, breathing example of it, because I graduated from SVA, School of Visual Arts in New York City. It's one of the top animation schools. Not a single studio job, not a single one. I've done freelance for almost all of the big studios, but I have never done a job that like I can point at it in said show and go, that was me. Not a single time. And that's fine. I have zero issue with that. Like I personally prefer working on my own things. And if I wanted a job, I would dive into that and like test for everything. But like I've tested so many times and not gotten the job, and that's on me. But I'm just saying, like, I have that big sparkly SVA graduate label, and it doesn't get you a job.
I feel like
so
I mean, at this point, you don't need it.
Oh, I don't need it.
Yeah,
I don't need
you don't
it.
even need
That's
it.
the thing.
But
I don't want to discourage anybody saying like, even I can't get a job. No, like if I wanted a job by now, I probably would have gotten it. I'm just saying, when I was younger, I was testing for shows. I was trying to get on, didn't ever quite make it. And part of that, I will say another thing too, I wish animation schools would do is teach you like how to test and how to board well. And I didn't learn boarding in school. We had one class on boarding, and the teacher, he was a great teacher, just it didn't teach me what I needed to know about actually going into the storyboarding, which like animation nowadays, most of the jobs in animation are pre-production. They're not animation. It's really kind of weird. So that's why I think I think I'm more of an advocate for online courses than I am the college experience now. But what I will say is that the college experience has its own benefits that it's up to you as the individual to take advantage of. And if you don't, I would recommend just teaching yourself and doing online courses. So that's my consensus. I'm not against art school. I just I don't think you need it. I'm in the camp of you don't need it. It's just, that's what it offers you if you think that that's the right path for you.
I'm the opposite of you. I didn't go to animation school for animation, and I work in animation. So.
Yeah.
From Will, why do you think most indie cartoons fail at the stop? Why do you think most indie cartoons fail at the start or stop once the first episode is done? I wonder if there's a specific example you could give us.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm not gonna cite any examples. I'm just gonna say what I think.
I'm not sure what.
Part of I feel what an indie show success or whatever is just hitting a chord with an audience. Sometimes it takes a really long time for things to hit the chord with the audience. That's why we have the term cult classic.
Yeah.
Is that it wasn't a hit when it came out, but then it finds its people and becomes
10 years later it finds the right people.
Yeah, exactly. So sometimes it's that, and then other times I feel like it just didn't quite hit with it just didn't quite hit with people, and it's always harder to then go from the pilot or whatever to the series. And the way I always view it is, if I ever made something that I felt was a dud, I have so many stories in me, I would rather just move on to the next one. Personally, I am kind of a creative shark, and I don't really feel like if I, like, let's say, I mean, God forbid, but like, let's say Hazbin had failed, I feel like I would have jumped into something new. I would have gone, okay, that was a misfire. Let's try Timber. Completely different theme, completely different tone, a kid's show versus an adult show. And I'd go, let me try that. That's the way I would go about it. Because I feel like as a storyteller and as a show creator, like, so many people have so many multiple stories in them that, but if that is your life and that's the one you care about, then it becomes a real labor and passion of love. And then it's like, all right, well, my attitude has always been to go to comics because they're easier and faster. And if it's more about the story than it is about the medium, then tell it as a comic, because that way you can get it out faster and it'll be less intensive and less funding needed. Like Hazbin, my plan was, if it was not successful, was to continue it as a comic. So I feel like that's an alternate way to do it as well.
Cool. Let's hear about your crew a little bit. How did you meet your crew and staff up?
I almost always do open calls, on Twitter. Usually I go, hey, I'm in need of this. And then I put the email, and then I get a flood of emails. And then I go through each email, look at the work and do a very traditional, like this person's work is good. Put them in a folder of like reach out to.
Mhm.
And then I go through that whole folder and I reach out to everybody and I try to, if it's a test, I give them a test, give them the NDA, all that stuff. The crews that I've found, I mean, I'm just lucky. I love my crew. The crew that helped me make Hazbin is amazing. But my current Spindle crew, is what we call, Spindle Horse is the little studio name. Uh, is so amazing. We've been, it's so funny because a few of them are local and we haven't been able to like hang out yet. But like we do calls like really regularly because we just want to touch base with everybody, and it's been making the pandemic a lot easier to deal with, to have like, engagement on a regular basis. But I love my crew. I could gush about my crew forever. I wouldn't, my projects would not be what they are without the people involved. Like, absolutely. They care so much about the show we're making. I have a personal, this is not something that I think everyone should do, but I think it's just my specific circumstances with who I am and with the internet being what it is and my mental health being what it is. I do ask people who apply to me up front if they like the show or not, because with an indie production, I do feel it's very important to work with people who actually like and believe in the project, because there will always be people who want to take advantage just because it's popular, just
Mhm.
because they need money, all these things. Normally, I'm not against, a job is a job. You need money, you need money. For an indie project though, it's not paying your bill. It's not going to be the studio job with all the perks and all the stuff. So I personally don't like working with people who it's just a job. It's just,
Gotcha.
and that's me because it's an indie show and it's also me as a person. I would rather, not everybody has to be in love with the show. Not everybody has to like every single joke, every single character, but you need to at least be comfortable with the subject matter. You need to at least be okay with the show. Should have at least liked the pilot, all of those things. I just feel like that's not asking that much. And it's also I'm not asking that of people. It's just who I want to work with. So I
Mhm.
ask up front, I go, did you like it? Is adult humor your thing? Was it okay with you? Because that's what you're getting being part of this.
Hmm.
And then whenever somebody's like, yes, I loved the pilot, it was great, I'm like, cool, you're gonna be a good fit here.
Cool.
So I feel like that's my personal way of going about it for indie stuff. I feel like it doesn't apply for studio stuff because a job is a job and you're not going to like every show you work on.
Yeah.
But for an indie project, I recommend being a creator, work with people who care and who will do their best work while also not resenting how little or how much, like, won't be thinking about like, what am I getting from
Yeah.
this?
I've only
So
been asked a couple times in job interviews, but they have a couple times I've asked, do you like if it's like a bigger show like DuckTales or something, they're like, do you like the show? Do you watch it? And I always was like, what does that matter? I'll always be
mhm.
nice and say, yeah, because I have watched it, but I never really, that makes sense that they would,
Yeah, for me it matters a lot. I can see, and I feel like maybe it matters to the studio people too, because it's an element of when you like something, you're gonna pay attention to it a
yeah.
little bit more and you're gonna give it a little bit more thought, and you're also gonna be more okay with
Mhm.
the, especially with indie stuff, the circumstances of not getting, as much money as you'd get at a
Yeah.
studio Disney job or whatever. And it's just, that's the special circumstances I feel comfortable with. But I also am somebody who makes adult comedy,
Mhm.
and adult comedy is not everyone's thing, and I
Yeah.
respect that. But that's why I'm like, please like adult humor if you want to work on this,
Sure.
because like I don't want anyone uncomfortable with what they're making or what they're part of. And the last thing I want is for someone to be ashamed. So I'm just sitting there going like, you better like, you know, F-bombs and demon characters, you know, like I'll never forget, I got this one voice actress applied to me. This was a long time ago. This was back on Hazbin, but she was like, I don't like hell things, but like, I really want this job. And I was like, I mean, I don't want to make, because it was this whole email about how like, you know, and she was religious, which, you know, there's nothing wrong with that, obviously, but like, you know, she was religious. She was like, I don't know about working on something hell related, but like, I just really want this job and I really want to do an animation. Also, I can't voice a gay character. And I was like, well,
You're applying
no,
for the wrong show.
you are in the wrong place, my dude. You know what I mean? I was like, it was this whole thing. And I'll never forget that, because some people do that. They'll go, oh, you know, I don't like the subject matter, but I really need a job. So here's my portfolio. Fun fact for people applying, never do that. Never, ever put in your email a hang up you have.
Yeah.
Instantly no.
You don't have to show you don't have to show Hazbin to your grandma, but you know,
yeah, like
don't
very, very weird. I'll never forget some of the emails that I get when people apply. They're like,
seriously,
you know,
I'm Catholic and I love this show.
Yeah, no, like a lot of people, that's what I'm saying. There's nothing wrong with it. It was just a weird email to get. Like, I was like sitting here going like, literally one of the writers is like, it's not an anti-religious show. It was just this weird, I'll never forget the whole like, oh, I won't get a voice a character who's gay. I'm just like, okay, if you have to as a voice actor go, I can't voice a character based.
Yeah, you should be up for voicing any character if you want to be a voice actor.
Yeah, I'm like, the whole point is acting. So that was just a weird.
Yeah, you're acting like a character that doesn't exist.
Yeah, it was a weird response, but yeah, it's always stuck with me that some people literally just apply to apply, and I just, you know, so I'm mindful of that. I pay attention.
A quick question says from Aaron: will you ever do another sketchbook tour or a drawing stream? I know you do some on Patreon, but I'm certain fans would love to see your thought process.
Oh, if I ever have time. That's the thing. I don't draw in sketchbooks anymore because I literally have no time. My time is spent going over shots every single day, answering emails, making sure that people are, you know, hooked up with the thing that they're doing and they're able to be continuing their work.
You're show running.
Usually, I'm show running full time. So I'm usually running around and getting people what they need and, you know, responding to emails, getting things set up to be worked on, all of that, so much that I don't barely draw anymore. The most I draw is I do, for these Helluva Boss episodes, I am going over and doing like keyframe touch-ups and model tweaks and notes, like draw over notes. That's like the most drawing I've done in ever. And I usually post that stuff, like I'm posting that stuff to Patreon. So I'm not able to do as much public stuff anymore. So we'll see. Maybe if I end up drawing in sketchbooks again. But it's a lot of added effort for me right now.
From Mason, how did you get your own manager? How were you able to reach out and pitch to studios? Oh, that's two different questions.
Oh, well, gosh, it's been so long that I don't remember the circumstances. I know I forget the circumstances of how I had this pitch initially, but I had a pitch at a studio called 6 Point Harness. And I am so sorry that I can't remember her name because I am a goldfish and I forget things. And it has been like 3 years now. But I met with an executive there and I pitched my stuff to her. And this was back in the beginning. This was like Hazbin was in its like infancy kind of. It was like at the boarding stage or finished boards. And I pitched to her and she liked it, but you know, it didn't end up being a fit for them. And she asked me if I had rep and I said, no, I'm looking. And she hooked me up immediately with who is now my manager, Tony. And then from Tony in this past year, he's helped me get rep from an agency. So now I'm with CAA, which has been a dream. I love him and I love CAA. So, you know, I can only talk good about it because they've put me in front of so many people that I've wanted to meet with my whole career. I mean, I literally will never, I can't believe, like, this is why my attitude with people is to never give up, because I actually worked with a company that claimed that they were gonna, they claimed they were a production company. They claimed they were gonna do this, this, and that. They stole from me. I have not been super vocal about the situation, like on Twitter or anywhere, because I am kind of, obviously it was so long ago. I'm doing much better now, but I literally had $20,000 stolen from me, from a scam company. And they promised all kinds of shit. They promised to help me meet this artist, this person, this actor. I have now met with every single one of those actors just since the couple months of being with CAA. So you always just keep going. It'll get better. I am literally now working with the artist that they claimed that they were going to hook me up with, who is like one of my favorite people alive. So I was like, I am so honored and thankful to have rep. I don't really know. It really is through like referrals and stuff. Like it really is. I hate to be that, like, it's who you know, but for rep, I think it kind of is, unless you really are a big, a big creator. Then they might spot your work and be like, oh, this is cool. Because I know my manager represents another artist who did another like indie cartoon. I won't name names because one, I don't know his name, I forget, but he did this really cool like Western pilot thing that maybe people are familiar with. I won't say the name, but like he I think is rep my manager as well now. And I think it was just because my manager, like me, saw like the potential in an indie creator. I was introduced to my manager, but this other creator I feel like was more so discovered. And I like that about my manager. I think it's really, really cool that he discovers like these young talent and puts them in front of people. So I can't properly though. I would say maybe just look into an agency, look into a rep person, because they're people. It's not just like the agency. It's like each agency has a bazillion agents and managers. So I would look into a specific person maybe, and then just email them and go, hey, like this is my stuff. I want rep. I feel like I could get jobs, because their whole priority is people who can get them, get jobs and stuff. So if you feel very comfortable with that, because it's not just, you're not paying them. They get money when you're successful. So they need to believe that you're going to be successful, so it's not just I got a manager, I'm going to pay him this much and he's a manager. No, like it's more so like you need to prove yourself. So I do feel like that's an element. Just work really hard and you'll get into that position where you can proposition management or an agent.
Cool. From Matthew, what's been your experience and what's the best approach to creating merchandise for your own project?
My attitude with merchandise is always, I don't like putting out what I wouldn't buy myself.
Mm-hmm.
And with us, we do our merch through this website called Shark Robot. They're very nice. They're very supportive. They're very easy to work with. And I have somebody who helps me run like the merch side of things. And he is much more business than I am, which is, apologies for the bazillions of ads and all that. It's not really me, and I will sometimes we'll get into tussles on how much is being posted. I'm like, I don't want, but the truth of the matter is that the merch really is where the funding like for the show is coming from. And without it, we wouldn't be able to continue making. So my attitude is just, I want to put out as good quality and as amazing stuff as possible so that I don't feel bad about how much we're selling. So I like to have a personal hand in all the designs. It's getting to the point where I really like what we're putting out. Like I would wear all of it. I'm like, this is awesome. And I really appreciate how much. So I would just say my attitude again is just make what you would wear. And what you feel comfortable, like what you would spend money on if you were a fan of this show. Because like the way I see it is I look at some of the designs we do and I'm like, if there was an Invader Zim shirt that was this well designed and this like unique and had like cool shit on the sleeves. And I mean, even what I'm wearing now is from a musical. It's a technically a merchandise from a musical. I just want to wear things that look cool and then like can represent the thing that you really like. So that's why with the merch, I'm like, I would buy that if this was a show. I would buy it just being the creator of the show, but if I was a fan of this show, I would absolutely buy this or that, or, you know, whatever. Like, I'm like, absolutely. And I'm always trying to expand what we're doing. We're going to try to do some things that are different. Like we expanded into plushies. We're going to try to do figures. We'll see. I don't want to make any promises, but we're like exploring other options. I really want to do like mugs and stuff because I collect cups. So
Yeah.
I would love to do like drinkware stuff. Like there's so much, but long story short, just make things that you want to make and that you care about and that you would buy if they were for something that you loved. So
I see a bunch of people asking, please answer Aspen's question. We're trying to go in order, but let me see if everyone doesn't mind, I'll just jump ahead because multiple people were asking.
Yeah.
Aspen asks, when creating a series, do you need to file copyright claim for your characters and ideas to keep them from being stolen by someone else? Absolutely. Go ahead, Viv.
Yeah, I mean, I have yet to kind of like figure out, I'm under the assumption that things are automatically yours once you make, you know, like copyright's a weird world where like, I know there is like a distinct, like these are copyrighted. I trademarked back in the day. I trademarked Zoophobia. I think it expired, but like I trademarked Zoophobia for comics. You know, Hazbin is undeniably mine, and there's no copyright. And there are plagiarists of Hazbin, I will say. Like, it's not like I can't see them. Any of the ones you probably see and you go, I wonder if they've seen that. I've seen it. It's just, I don't care. I don't care because, like, there's nothing they could do. They couldn't pitch it. They couldn't do anything with it. Because if they did, if it moved forward, I would go, I'm going to sue you. Yeah. So like the truth of the matter is that it happens when something's successful, people plagiarize it. Even when things are not successful, they plagiarize it. With Hazbin, it's crazy because I feel like it's even had an influence on things in the studio world, and it's kind of a weird feeling. But like I just I feel like your idea is yours, and you can do that with it. So even if somebody comes and plagiarizes, it makes you look way worse to be the bully, especially if your project's the bigger one, to be the bully and go, no, that's mine. You can't do that unless they're literally making like a movie or a game or whatever. Yeah. Then you have a case, and then you should take it to court. You shouldn't take it to like the public, outcry. You should take it to court. You should send them a cease and desist. But so I'm not fussed about copyright personally, because I feel like once you make it, it's yours. Like I think automatic copyright, if you want to be extra secure, you could go and get it done by the copyright.
I feel like once your show or ideas or whatever reach a certain height, you should.
Probably a good idea.
Viv, won't you have to though? With I don't know how much you can talk about A24.
I mean, I that might be more on that end of like now that it's reaching this higher level.
I think you'll have to get
that
your
are
own,
involved with it will probably deal with the copyright.
Yeah.
But
they'll probably want you to have your own too, like Spindle Horse. Yeah.
Yeah.
But to actually like, get an LLC or whatever signed up with the state of California. I don't know.
Hard, yeah.
No, it's not hard at all.
And there's so much, like at the end of the day, copyright is also just like the proof of everything. Like you can back up that this is your idea and you've had it. Yeah. So for me, there's years of proof.
If anyone's interested, Ollie and Scoops is copyrighted. My stuff. It's all Nico Animation LLC, and I just signed up. You just create your, sign up a business with the state of or California or wherever you live, and it was $80. It's
Well, that's the creating the LLC. I mean, I have that for Spindle. I just wasn't sure that was.
Okay. Yeah, that's what I was talking about. Yeah. Cool. I'm glad we got to touch on that. Where were we here? Your own manager, merchandise, impact. Okay. We already kind of, how did you get the contacts to do this big project? We already kind of answered that.
That's also my recommendation also for contacts is just be a good person to work with.
Yeah.
I have not had a single contact made that wasn't just from being nice enough to work with, that someone goes, oh, you know who you should talk to? This person, I'll hook you up. That's really it. And I've been so lucky. It's awesome. So just be someone that's easy to work with. Don't be demanding of people. Don't be rude.
Just be your nice, cool self.
Yeah.
Unless you're not a nice, cool person.
Yeah, and then in which case you're gonna sit there and wonder why nobody wants to work with you, and you're gonna realize.
A question from Harry: how much of an impact did going to SVA have on Hazbin in terms of getting in touch with industry insiders as well as getting the Spindlehorse crew to create the show? Do you think you would have been able to do Hazbin at all without going to SVA?
I mean, I believe everything in life leads you to what it leads you to. So do I think I would have made Hazbin if I hadn't gone to SVA? No, because, that was what gave me the knowledge, the energy, the whatever it did. Contacts wise, nope. I'm not even in contact with anybody I went to school. SVA is a weird gray area for me because I have reconciled that I didn't have a good time there. I like love the school, love the teachers. There's some teachers that I still keep up with now. I don't regret being in New York City because that's more so what I mean by like I wouldn't be the person I am now if I didn't go to SVA, because going to SVA and living in New York City, I feel like filled me with so much inspiration. And also being really close to Broadway, and I adore Broadway, and it really grew my love of musical theater. Without that, Hazbin would not have been what it is. That said, every single person who helped me with Hazbin were people who I met after graduating. So the biggest lesson I can give for everybody also going to college is that those people do not need to be your full-time friends. They do not need to be the people that are in your life forever. I used to believe that. I used to think, oh, these are my peers. We're all going to be showrunners together. It's going to be great. This is going to be awesome. Not talking to a single one. I mean, there's a few people that I don't feel negatively about, but there's quite a few who I do. So I'm just, all my best friends I met out of school.
Cool.
Right out of school, actually.
This might occur naturally, but do you have any tips for creating a fan base? You've always had a huge following, but I rarely see you follow the traditional ways to gain traction online, such as fan art.
Well, I did start with fan art. I think a lot of people don't know that about me. When I have been growing my audience since I was, middle school. And I have always been very stubborn, and I would interject my characters as much as possible. But, when I was younger, I would do a lot of fan art because I was a big fan of things, and it's how I developed my style. I was also always into very weird, obscure shows. So maybe that's why nobody really knows. Like, I really liked, like, everyone else was drawing like all these popular shows, and I was sitting there watching. Like, I drew Garfield and Friends, I drew Al Day, I drew Buzz Lightyear of Star Command, I drew like all the weirdest, not weird because all those shows are phenomenal, by the way, but like all the like shows that weren't really the big Gravity Fallses of their day, you know what I mean? Like, they weren't the big shows that everyone was watching. I was drawing these like obscure shows that I really liked. So
Billy
I did.
And Mandy.
Yeah, Billy and Mandy. That one was a big hit. I loved Billy and Mandy. Billy and Mandy, though, Zim was the big one. Zim is a big show. So I was in those trenches. I was in that fandom, kind of. Not even. I've never really been a fandom person. I've never really understood that world. But I was a fan of things, and I would draw fan art. So I have done fan art, but I would always do my original characters like within that, or like alongside it. So I don't think it was a big jump when I kind of just switched over to just doing characters and just doing my stories. And I really don't know what it is about. I cannot pinpoint what it is about my work that has resonated with people. I've been told, because I've asked people point blank, I'm like, why? And people have told me it's because it was so obvious that I loved my characters so much that like I would just gush over them, and it was kind of infectious. It's like kind of like when you smile, it's infectious. I guess my overly puppy dog energy, excitement for my own characters was infectious because it's kind of bled over. And I feel like that's also part of why Hazbin is successful, because I don't think anyone can watch Hazbin and not feel how much love is there with these characters. Because I love them to death. I love the story to death. I want nothing more than to tell it. I would give up everything I own to be able to tell the story. That's all I care about. And so I feel like that kind of energy is just, it's a vibe that's infectious, because everyone wants to feel that passion for something. So yeah, I don't know though. I don't know what about my path made it. I've been on the road for so long that it's just been gradual. And the bigger my projects get, the more people see it and the more people like come in, like started with just drawing my characters all the time, graduated to doing the comic, graduated to doing the fan animations, graduated to doing Hazbin. And now, I'm so excited to be saying that we're working on a series, because Helluva Boss is by all means a series. It is a real show. And so will Hazbin be, it's all crazy to me.
One thing I can tell for sure from your question, Aaron, is it didn't happen overnight.
Yeah.
Creating a fan base takes a while.
Well,
just got to keep at it.
My whole career. Yeah, no, it doesn't. I've had to tell that to a few people.
You said
it doesn't
since middle
happen
school.
Overnight. Yes, it does not happen overnight. I was not this big. I wasn't even this big like 2 years ago. It's been a very gradual journey.
It's only going to get bigger. From Stefania, do you have any professional experience in writing, or are you learning as you go?
I'm learning as I go.
Yeah.
I guess technically now, because I've been writing so many scripts, but I have yet to be paid for a script. So I technically feel like that's not professional. It is professional, but like, I feel like the term is meant for when you're paid to do something. So, technically not. I've yet to be paid for one, but I have written many, and I feel like I am getting better. I feel like if somebody told me write a script now, I would probably be able to do it.
I'd say if you're writing the Hazbin A24 series, that's a professional writing position. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
From Alexander, what was it like working with Maxwell Adams?
Mm-hmm. I love him. He's so easy to work with. One of the kindest people ever. I'm honored to call him a friend now.
What was the line he said? He had one line, right?
He had a few lines. He
okay.
was a bunch of incidentals in Hazbin.
Okay.
And he had one line that was the show stealer was his, "Wow, that was shit," which I thought was really funny. I was very set on that being him, because he was such an influential person of my youth. And so I just thought it was really funny. I love the idea that someone whose work helped inspire this thing would be the one saying that kind of line to the main character. I was just like, this perfect. He's so fun. He's so creative. It's an honor to work with him and be his friend. It's a great person, really sweet person. And he's, it's a crazy journey. It's a crazy place that I'm in. And that's another reason why anyone who feels discouraged, like, never beat it, just keep at it. Because like, if you told young me that I would be friends with Maxwell Adams and Richard Horvitz, I would have cried. I would have just laid down on the floor and cried. But now it's like, it's important also to remember that all of these people are people, and that you're meeting them. And there's nothing wrong with being anxious or being stressed or being excited that you're now talking to this person or friends with this person. But at the end of the day, they are people. And it's really cool to now be an adult who knows them as an adult and is working with them and like sees them, sees the real person there, not just the creator of Billy and Mandy or the voice of Invader Zim. It's very like, no, that's Richard and that's Maxwell. You know what I mean? It's very crazy. But it was great. I love working with him. Super, super nice. And he does some voices in Helluva Boss too.
Cool.
So,
good.
Yeah, he's doing some more stuff in that.
We suddenly have 15 minutes left. So
Oh,
maybe let's do like a lightning round where we try to answer
okay. Hit a bunch.
like 30-second answers, 10-second answers. I don't know. Okay, how do you overcome fears on what other people will think about your story or projects?
Oh, that's a good one. Overcoming fear. My biggest thing, because that is something I've experienced. I have experienced many a person just reading my work the wrong way, or like not understanding or assuming the worst, and just all of that. I have gotten all of the bad faith takes you could imagine.
Hmm.
And for me, it's frustrating to a point, because at certain points I go, this is so obviously not what I was doing, but okay. But sometimes I'm like, I get it, because we've only put out the first episode. I am living with these characters. I am living with their arcs and their stories. I know where it goes. I think the important thing to do is know, if you know where your stories are and your intentions lie, they can't take that away from you. Nobody can
Hmm.
sit there and tell you what your intent was behind your writing or behind your characters. Nobody can sit there and tell you that you were trying to do something harmful when you know it was not the case. So my recommendation is just know who you are, know what your intentions are. Always listen, because there's always things you could do better. There's nothing wrong with that. But if you know where your heart was when you wrote it, and you know what your intentions were, you have to cling to that, because letting someone convince you of something that was not the case is just harmful, and it's harmful to your mental health, and it's just ugh. So that's
Hmm.
my recommendation, is just know who you are and know why you're making it. And if you're making something and you know that's for valid reason and you care about it, then you can stick by it, because you have to stick by it, because the alternate is bending to what somebody else wants you to do and it being inauthentic and messing up that way, because there's no easier way to mess up than when something is inauthentic,
Hmm.
because then you don't care enough to do it right. So it's, yeah, that's my advice.
That's good advice. Well said. Um, we kind of answered this, but we can look at it another way, another angle.
Hmm.
From Jade, I was wondering how you made the connections you made, the people you work with. Did you go to art school to help with that? I find the hardest thing for me as an artist is making connections, especially online. Any suggestions? Besides school, like you said,
Hmm.
meeting
my
people,
my
it appears
biggest
there.
my biggest advice for that is just do not turn your nose up to anybody.
Yeah,
I cannot tell you how many people will only care about talking to certain people or being around certain people if they know that they're, I can't tell you how many people like have gone from, oh yeah, that's cool, and then like talking to me at a party or whatever,
yeah.
and I'm in the industry, party, and someone who works at Disney or Warner or whatever, and they go, they're not even looking at me, not
Yeah.
even looking at me, and then the person I'm with will go, oh yeah, and then like, what? How is Hazbin going? And I'll go, oh, it's going good, and then they'll look at me and they're like,
You did Hazbin?
Hazbin,
Yeah.
are you working on it? And I'm like, yeah, I created it. And then, whoa,
Yeah.
oh my
Yeah.
God, don't do that. Don't be that person who only is going to give somebody the time of day once you know what they're doing or know who they are. It's so
Yeah.
rude. And I feel like I've made connections because I literally talk to everybody and I add everybody, and I
Mhm.
am like, and if somebody goes, hey, I'm a musician, I remember, I go, oh, I need a musician. And then like later I'll go back to them and I'm like, oh, hey. And some of my best like relationships have been through that, and through party. And then, and then you're that person's friend, and then you go to their parties, and then they know. You never know who somebody knows,
Yeah.
and you never know who you're going to hit it off with. Because that's why I don't like when people look down, because you never know if like that person is then friends with like the composer you've always wanted to ask about a project. And you also should not see people as a means to an end.
Mhm.
Should not befriend somebody just on the off chance. So many people try to befriend my friends to get to me, and like I guarantee you, firstly they see through it, and then they tell me so that I see through it, and I'm not going to work with you if you do that. It's not going to happen. And it happens everywhere. So don't be that person. My recommendation is just be yourself, be a good person. Don't look down on anybody. We're all in this journey together. if anyone had looked at me 3 years ago, or even before Hazbin, and looked down their nose at me and not cared, those people are now regretting it, because now I made something of myself, and I can't tell you how many people were like that. They're like, oh no, she's, it doesn't matter that we're shitty to her in college, because it's, we're never going to see her again. And it's like, hi, I'm still here. So, my recommendation is just be a good person. Just be friendly, meet people because you want to meet them, find common interests, and go from there. Don't be using people as stepping stools or explicitly for networking. In context.
Great. From Jordan, what programs do you use for your animation and animatics?
I usually use TV Paint. I'm graduating to Toon Boom because that's where my production is. Like, majority of the team uses Toon Boom.
Okay.
And I need to be able to go over the lines and look at the shots. So I got Toon Boom, and it's fun. I'm learning it, and it's cute. Or it's not cute. It's good. It's a good program.
Yeah.
It's a good program. I'm just used to TV Paint, so I'm a dinosaur that doesn't like to graduate to things. So I like things familiar. So.
Yeah. From Hannah, hi Viv, when working on your own projects, what are the ways you avoid burnout? I worry about starting to hate the things I love by overworking on them.
Oh man. Well, burnout happens no matter what. It happens for me even. I am weirdly impervious to burnout, though, of my projects. I will sometimes get a little exhausted of being too in a certain world. And when that happens, I move to another one. I have so many different worlds and stories that sometimes when I'm really feeling the burn from one, I go, all right, let's think about Timber for a while. Let's think of, and then I'll always chip away a little bit more of that project, so that when that one is the one that gets focused, I get to go, I know where, it's that much more developed. So my recommendation is jumping to another story just to, spice things up, or, just finding new ways to invigorate yourself. Like for me, I go back to music. Sometimes go back to old music that I haven't listened to in a while.
Take a night off and just listen to a bunch of records.
Yeah, or just take a night off and just not think about your world at all, and just go, you know what, I'm going to take a break. I'm going to put it on the shelf right now. It's nice you can't do it right now, but it's nice to get out and do things and, take a little break,
It'll be easier once we can go out.
Yeah.
Oh, wow, a lot of questions. Okay, let's do quicker lightning round.
All right, yeah.
From Giordano, I finished a few of my own projects, but my biggest struggle has always been advertising and promoting them. Any tips?
I'm also really bad at that. I definitely think trailers, clips were very successful for Hazbin. Like putting out little bits and pieces of the show was really successful.
Use all over social media. Use as much social media as you can.
Just get it in people's
Twitter, Instagram. Make hashtags for your project or your show, or whatever it is.
Project is really handy, yeah.
And post it everywhere, and if it stands out enough, the fans will find it.
Yeah.
From Paul, how long do you aim to make your episodes? I'm assuming of Helluva.
Helluva?
Or probably both shows.
Yeah, Helluva. The aim was 11. Didn't happen. Like I said, we misjudged in our writing. So the first half of season 1 is what we're doing right now. They're gonna be between 13 to 15 minutes.
Okay.
They're very long.
For Helluva.
For Helluva, yeah.
Cool. Is there any word on Hazbin, or that's being worked on?
Hazbin is a 22-minute.
Okay.
That's all I can say. Yeah.
Cool. All right. I'm sorry if I don't. Yossi, did you do a lot of research into mythology when creating your version of Hell? I've been working on something based on Hell too. I'm really big into dance. I'm not sure what that is.
Dance? Oh, Dante?
Dante, D-A-N-T, but maybe I got cut off. Oh, Dante's Inferno. I'm really big into Dante's Inferno.
I'm going to bet it's Dante. I mean, yeah, I have read and have base knowledge of most. I love, I've been for Hell of a Boss. It has more to do with the Hell lore, funny enough, than even Hazbin, because Hazbin is more about like the concept of Hell and my fictionalized version of it, and like, you know, people who died in their lives and stuff. Whereas Helluva is more, the main cast are the society of hell, so it makes more sense to get into more of the mythology. So we get into the Ars Goetia demons, which to anyone who knows about demonology is like kind of like a class of demons that are throughout, you know, like Payman is one of them. That's like the demon from Hereditary. It's just really deep, like kind of like extra level fun. Like Stolas is based on one of the Ars Goetia, which is how I pronounce it. I don't actually know if we pronounce it correctly, but it's my show. You can just pronounce it however I want.
There you go.
But we're doing it that way, and we're getting into that. So I love playing with it. We're playing with the rings, which is like in Dante, there's like the rings of hell. But I love playing with, the best part about mythology or fairy tales or folklore or whatever is that you can really like adapt it into your own thing, and you can make it fun and unique. Like people do that with the Greek myths all the time, and I really like it. So I am using a lot of hell-based lore, and I'm going with the concept of hell, where the 7 deadly sins, like Lucifer, is not the same as Satan, and Satan is not the same as Beelzebub. They're 3 different characters, just stuff like that. That like most people wouldn't think about, but like anyone who knows demonology is going to be like, oh, I get it, you know. So
cool. From Perry, question: do you think short-form entertainment like TikTok will eventually take over traditional 30-minute animated TV storytelling?
No.
No. Human beings naturally crave stories and narratives and characters.
There's always going to be feature films. There's always going to. I mean, we're just in a world where short form stuff like that will probably continue to be successful, but like it's more of a day to day, I feel, instant gratification than it is like the long form storytelling that we want as a species. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Like, we're
people naturally have been telling stories since the caveman days, so it's like you know, I don't think it's going away anytime soon. Okay, let's do a super lightning round.
All right.
I have like 10 questions at least still. How do you get everybody to follow a specific vision working on your show without coming off like a bossy tyrant? I would say you're the boss, so
yeah,
you know.
at the end of the day, it's your vision and stuff, and you can stick with that. I love trusting my artists. Like it goes back to the other question, which is why I won't spend time on it. It goes back to the other question of finding a team that actually likes the property. Because if they like the property, they're going to care about your vision. They're going to care about the characters enough to probably get your vision right. Like I have a team that knows my vision so well and knows the characters so well and cares about the show so well that they get it right the first time, and I go, that was it.
Yeah. I think people and the artists and the crew are going to know that Viv or me or whoever is the showrunner, and we're not going to come off bossy because they just know that it's our thing. So that's the, you know, that's the game of the job.
Yeah.
From Raven, how do you divide up the work for the animation and the cleanup team? Like, do you ask who wants to animate which shot, or do you decide who animates what?
I decide, and I try though to be mindful of the team's preference. Like, and I also pay attention. Like at this point, I know whose strong points are what. So if somebody's strong points are action, probably going to give them the action scenes. So someone's strong points are lip sync and subtle acting, I'm going to give them the subtle acting scenes. So I try to deviate it based on like what I know the artist is capable of and what their strong suits are. That said, some of my leads I will allow like to pick a shot here and there because I just want them to feel like they can go all in on something really expressively. But for the most part, I decide because I have to decide, because if I don't, there's going to be 3 artists that want the same shot. You know, because every episode has money shots, you know, they have like the shots that everyone wants to do. And I have to be the one that decides which person's going to do that. So I think that's why I choose everything. But if someone goes, I really want that shot specifically, I'm like, I'll try to put that in with their workload, you know.
Cool. From Maria, how did you start off Spindlehorse Studios? Was there a person you had to go to make it an official studio? It's yours, right?
Yeah, the bank. You know, like the you know, just go to the bank, be like, I want to set up an LLC, or
Yeah.
me, it's an S corp. You know, it's
Yeah.
and they're like, cool, and then you set it up, and it's a business thing, so
Yeah.
it's not fun. It's
You
not
set up a small
creative.
business.
You have to be a mini business person. You have to adult very hard, but
Yeah.
it's not hard. But you
It's
have
like
to. It's not a creative aspect of
it's
the
a month
thing.
or two of paperwork back and forth with the Secretary of State,
Yeah,
whatever state you live in.
exactly. Yeah.
From Lauren, hey Viv, how did you develop your style? It's so unique.
Oh, thank you. I always say style is literally a big blender of all the things that you and your eye picks up on and likes about all the things you look into. So some people do have styles that reminisce other people's style, and I feel like that's because they don't have enough influence in their style. So my recommendation is just throw everything in. Like mine, I do eyelashes a certain way because I saw it literally one time and I was like that, and and I do it like that. But then, the way I do the pupils is completely different from that person who did the eyelashes, or whatever. And then, the movies I grew up with, like I love the sharp silhouettes and the thin, lanky, and the shape language of like Tim Burton. But like, I really like how Bruce Timm draws women, and I really like how Bruce Timm does expressions of mouths, and I really like how Brittany Lee does like the beautiful, shapes of like the hair. And I just like every single artist that just is influencing you and your style. The more in the mixing pot, the more in the blender, the less it'll look like any of those people, and the more it'll look like you. And so I always recommend just having as many influences possible on your style, and taking from it what you like about each one, but also retaining because then it'll automatically be what you like and what your style is, because it'll be what you liked about each style without taking from them entirely. Because if you only like one person's style, you'll draw on that style, and then that's not fair. It's not fair to you. It's not fair to them. You need to really make it. So with me, I can tell I know there's like a little bit of the Jonan Vasquez in there, a little bit. There's a little bit of Warner Brothers, like Looney Tunes style. There's a hint of Disney. There's a hint of my love of monster films. There's that music theater posing act, so much. There's so much. Bruce Timm, big one. Lots of stuff.
That's how you did developed your style.
Yeah.
It's a big mesh of all the stuff you like.
All the things you like.
I'm asking if we can go a little over, because I feel bad not getting to everyone's questions. While I'm waiting for an answer, okay, I lost my place. Sorry, hang on. Okay. Aaron, question, what made you decide on the different tiers of species in hell, from overlords to imps? And what is your thought processing on creating a hell being such as Angel and Charlie?
That's fun. I love playing with how the society is broken up and what like the tier levels of each one. So at some point I need to make like a diagram of like every single one, because I have them. But it was more so just figuring out like what made sense in like the story and what made sense in like the world. So it's, like the top of the food chain is Lucifer, and he's like the runner, he's like the king of all of it. Charlie's underneath him because she's his heir. Underneath him is the 7 deadly sins, and underneath them is the Ars Goetia, and then underneath them is the like sinning class. I feel they're not quite they're like beneath all of these, or no, the overlords are underneath them. Then underneath the overlords are the regular sinner class, and then underneath them is the some of like the succubus and the incubus and some of the other demon classes in hell. And then on pretty the low bottom is like imps and hellhounds are like kind of the bottom of this society, which is why Helluva is about the imps, because it's basically like the working class of this entire society, and they have all these other classes above them. Like even the sinning class is technically above them, and they have to work the retail jobs or like the whatever job in the sinners world.
They're the middle to lower class.
Yeah, exactly.
Cool.
So it's been fun to figure out.
Okay. From Priscilla. Hello, Viv. Do you help write the songs, or do you leave it all to the songwriters, or do you write them?
Oh, that's a good question. I will help write the songs, sort of. Some of them have lyrics that I have helped with, because I feel like most comfortable writing lyrics versus an entire song. I usually trust my songwriters. It's their forte, it's their world. And I'm just there to make sure the lyrics like make sense and fit the story and everything. And I'll tweak them here and there, but like for the most part, I really like seeing what the songwriter just goes wild with.
Cool. Cool. We're going to go up to an even 50 questions. So
All right.
we've got 7 questions left.
Alrighty.
uh, from Lauren, how many people total worked on Hazbin? I noticed almost every animator I follow works on it.
Oh man. I mean, that makes sense because there was like over 100 people who touched it. I don't know the exact number. Over 100 people touched it.
I know it fills a movie theater.
It filled a movie theater. And that wasn't even everybody, but yes, it was a lot of people, and a lot of people work for me still. Like it's a lot of hands. It's a lot of hands to make this. It's not one person. It's every project, every animated project. There's a reason that the credits are sitting there for 5 minutes going up. Like it's a big undertaking.
From Stefania, do you have business experience or studies to make your production so stable? You seem to manage your money very well.
I don't, which is why I'm like, that is not something that's taught. I wish it was taught. I just think I'm naturally, and maybe not naturally, that's the wrong word, but I have a knack for it that I never trained for. And I do feel very confidently that I am smart with budget and money and managing. And I feel like it's part of me. And it could be because my mother is my mother is like the runner of a lawn care company. So she worked her way up to that. She's always been incredibly good at delegation. So maybe I just took after her, or maybe just seeing how she did it. I don't know. I literally just I just had a knack for it. And I just thought about things like in a very practical sense. And I still don't think I know the nitty gritty of it, but
also when you got screwed over, maybe you
that was also part of it.
learn
I'm
from
a lot more careful with money too. Yeah. Like I don't like making promises, which even with Helluva Boss, it's like I didn't even want to like officially start writing more episodes until we like secured the budgets for like these ones. And now that we have, I'm like starting to write the episodes so that we can secure the budget for the next recording cost. And then the recording cost. And then once it's recorded, we can go. Like then it's like season 1 in the bag, you know? So I'm excited for that.
Cool.
That's the next step. Is we went from let's make the first batch of episodes and let's make them really good to this is the first half of season 1 and we're going to try to make the whole season. So we'll see.
Great.
Crossed, but I'm feeling very good about it. I feel like we really can.
From Ryan, question for Viv. How do you go about incorporating musical numbers into a cartoon or TV show? Anything you learned from this process in the Hazbin pilot?
I've learned that the songwriters need lots of time. And I've learned that, the more information you can give them up front, the better, so that they can really incorporate and understand the characters and the motivations behind the songs. But it's really not that hard. I think it's also partially writing a script that the songs fit into organically and making sure that you can lead it into the song so they don't just jump into a song all of a sudden. Making it in the script makes sense. Like I know, I believe it was either John Musk or one of the directors of one of the Disney films said something about how, or maybe it was Howard Ashman, even the songwriter for a lot of Disney films. It's always important to, if you can take the song out and the script does not change, you've done it wrong. So you have to write a script where that song is necessary, and it is doing a very specific thing in the story.
I always feel like don't have songs just to have songs.
Yes. Yeah. You have to find a reason.
Make there be a story point or help the story move along.
Exactly.
Couple more here. From Michael, how do you find the time and motivation to keep steady progress on an independent project while balancing life's other demands? In my case, it's finishing college.
Just how do you balance time?
How do you balance time and motivation while balancing your projects?
That's really just up to the individual. For me, it's just the passion for it. You know, if you have enough passion for it, that energy will propel you to work alongside your 9 to 5
Hmm.
or your college or whatever it is. Because time really is a big factor. And sometimes when you're coming back from a long day at work or school, you don't have the energy. And I don't think you should force yourself to do something if you don't have that energy.
Yeah.
It usually comes from when you are passionate about the show or the project, that will propel you with that energy. If you don't have it, that
Hmm.
might be a sign that your project isn't quite something you're ready to ride or die for, which, you know, is up to you then to
Yeah.
see what, you know, how to go about it.
Um, uh, the next question is, do you have a day job on the side? I don't think you do, right?
No, not anymore. I
Okay.
used to. I used to do like freelance pretty like full time to help support everything. But again, thanks to the absolute overwhelming love of the show from
Yeah.
the audience and the merch sales and the Patreon support, I'm able to focus full time and still allocate the smallest amount to be focusing on it full time from like my own money that I make on YouTube or streaming. So like the most I'll do as a day job is I'll open commissions here and there just to
Mhm.
have spending money for myself. But you know, because of the pandemic, I actually haven't had the need to go and do extracurricular things
Yeah.
like, you know, go see shows or a concert or anything for fun, movies. So I have all this money to now be going towards my food,
Ah,
and you know, I don't need to,
that's good,
you
I
know,
guess.
yeah, I guess, you
Positive
know,
spin on it.
yeah.
From Maria, would you ever someday in the future like to do a mentorship slash internship to help future artists?
Internship, I've been asked about a lot of times. I don't think I would do it because we're not like a studio quite on that level yet. I love doing things like this where I can impart any kind of wisdom.
Mhm.
Love to have anything I do be something that can help somebody else. But um, I don't think I would do like a mentorship or an internship personally. It just doesn't really seem like the sort of thing it doesn't really seem it just doesn't feel right to me. But I love, you know, the info. Like I'd love to do maybe like a course. Like
Yeah.
I've always had this like low key dream of becoming a teacher one day and teaching
Do
people
something
to
with
do
CTN
this.
here.
Yeah. Like
Yeah.
I would it's really cool to just be able to help people like
Yeah.
get to the place where I am. But you know, and especially storytelling. Like I care a lot about stories and storytelling, and I feel like I need a little bit more experience in my stories to be able to do that confidently. But I care a lot about character writing and character motivation and story. So I'd love to like do that, but in terms of like the actual studio, probably not
Gotcha.
mentorships or anything.
Yeah. Just doing these 10 streams has been like remarkable for me, and it's really kind of filled a void to
Yeah,
hopefully these are really helpful to everyone.
yeah,
So
I hope so.
hope to make more, and yeah. And we got a last question here.
Sweet.
Uh,
Wow.
Sugar Sticks asks, "Quick, Viv, what's the weirdest dream you've ever had about your own characters?"
Oh my god. That's a funny one to end on. I don't often dream about my characters, so I can't actually remember.
Okay.
I usually dream about meeting and working with someone that I've always wanted to, and then I wake up and it's not real,
Yeah, that stinks.
and then or I'll have one where, you know, the pitch or whatever that I was dreading went really well and the show got picked up or whatever, and it's like, oh my god, and I wake up, nope. I either get really like semi-realistic dreams about things that I'm literally like goals, but then I wake up and I go, wow, that didn't actually happen. Or I'll have the opposite where something horrible will happen and I'll wake up and go, okay, thank God that didn't happen. So I hate dreaming. If I could get rid of dreaming altogether, I would. So unfortunately, I never dream about fun things like my characters. So I
Uh,
don't have a story. I just have weird, stupid dreams about monotonous things that either disappoint me or relieve me upon waking. But when even the ones that are bad, like even though I wake up and I go, okay, that didn't happen, I have that anxiety from the
yeah,
dream for
yeah.
like the better part of my morning, and I just hate it. I hate dreams.
Hey, would you mind in the chat? I don't know. Everyone probably has your info, but if you want to write your Twitter, or you can plug whatever you want. here in the chat for everybody. So anyone who's not following you can follow you.
Wait, me?
Yeah, or if, yeah, whatever you want to plug. If I mean, I
Sure,
assume
I
most people
can,
here are already following you. But
if
yeah.
anyone
Oh, thank
wants
you,
to,
everybody.
yeah, if anyone wants to follow me, my Twitter is VivsyPop. My Instagram is VivsyBusies, I think.
Is
Busy
it
with
is
the,
it because you're busy?
yeah,
You're
I
really
like
busy lately.
I could still make a pun without having, like, somebody stole the VivsyPop
Yeah,
one,
I saw
and then
that.
I mentioned it, and then it got banned because everyone reported it, and I'm like, okay, so now I don't think you can be, I don't think I can be VivsyPop on Instagram anymore. But and then someone took my old username and I tried to take it back, so I'm like, you know what, Busy,
Yeah,
accurate.
she's busy.
I kind of like it as a username too.
Yeah.
It makes sense. But so there's that, and then my YouTube is Spindle Horse. But it also, if you search VivsyPop in the Google search bar, it'll pop right up.
Everything will pop up.
I
Cool.
made Hazbin Hotel and Helluva Boss.
Oh,
Kesha's
thank you so much, Viv. Hey, did you not know she was right there?
Yeah, hello. This is my
um,
sweetie. Hello, Momo.
Thank you so much, Viv,
Just
for
does
being a
it.
part of this. A pleasure
Oh,
having you. And before everyone leaves, I just want to tell everyone about the last couple episodes. Our next one in 2 weeks, we're going to have Craig Bartlett, the creator of Hey Arnold. He'll be talking about creating characters and strong characters, adding some weight to the characters of your characters. The 2 Wednesdays after that, we're going to have Jorge Gutierrez on, who did, Book of Life,
Book of
El
Life, El
Tigre.
Tigre.
He'll
So
be
many
talking about
things.
pitching to studios, which I know a lot of people here have asked a lot about. And then our, I guess, season finale will be Rob Renzetti, My Life as a Teenage Robot creator, and Craig McCracken, the Powerpuff Girls creator and Foster's Home. They'll both be here in an episode together, and we'll just be talking about showrunning your own show and what that's like. So 3 more great episodes coming up that you all should not miss.
Awesome.
Thank you all again, and thank you so much, Viv, for being a part of this.
Thank you. Of course, it's always fun to talk and talk and talk.
whenever we can hang out in between pandemic
I know.
crap, I'll
When
see
we
you
can
then.
eventually all leave the house,
Yeah.
that'd be great. But thank
All
you
right.
so much for having me.
Thank
This has been
you. Thank
great.
you,
Have a
everybody.
great time, you guys. Thank you so much.
Thanks.
Hope you enjoyed it.